Just gotta show the boss that you were here.
Yes. So we're going to open the floor for public comment. If anyone in the public is here and wishes to speak, please raise your hand at this time. Okay, no one wishes to speak. We will close public comment. Next on the agenda is review of the meeting minutes from November 10th, which I was not present for, but I got the gist of the meeting. So I received one correction from Kathleen several months ago now, which just requested that she be moved to attended rather than absent. Does anyone have any other edits? No? Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Jake, I'm abstaining because I don't think I've stayed.
Okay, thanks, Al. Okay, thank you. So before we get to the meat of the meeting, I am going to provide a quick update on what we have been doing in the engagement group and ways that you can help engage the community. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. We can all direct our attention to the smart board. Thank you. So the engagement group met twice over the past 2 months, and we've accomplished actually quite a bit. We compiled a list of organizations to contact, boards to engage, and platforms for outreach. We reviewed and provided feedback on strategies, discussed ways the steering committee can get involved and help amplify the outreach, and reviewed the survey, the explainer video, which anyone who was present would know is no small feat, getting that published and ready to go, and the meeting in a box materials. So here's kind of where we landed with our engagement strategy. Social media. As you're aware, last year, some people felt that we didn't do enough online outreach. We are hoping to rectify that this time around. So I spoke with Christina Metcalf, the town's communications officer, and we will be using Facebook, X, and Instagram. We will not be using Blue Sky, TikTok, or Reddit for safety and security concerns. So you can get involved in a variety of ways, post or share posts, create your own posts, and just circulate it as best you can. And let me just say before I proceed that I will send a sign-up sheet probably tomorrow or Wednesday, asking where you would prefer to be involved, what you'd like to do, what really speaks to you. So keep that in mind as I go through this. Direct outreach. So if you have someone, a leader of an organization, someone who's really involved with a church or a group or whatever, you can make personal contact with them and help us reach their audience. So there are a couple ways to do that, of course. You can engage them online, in person, offer to sit down with them over a cup of coffee and explain the significance of the comprehensive plan. Really just whatever you feel like doing.
And so
Yeah.
did the subgroup kind of assemble already a list of different organizations in their email?
Yes, so that will be
So that
something.
we also don't.
Exactly, that will be on my list or my sign-up sheet. I'll ask which groups you would like to engage with, just to make sure we do not have any duplicates.
Mhm.
And then meeting in a box. I think everyone knows what a meeting in a box is at this point, but you can of course host your own. You can facilitate a meeting. You can explain the benefits of the meeting in a box activity or attend a conversation. You don't have to lead it. You can just participate.
I'm definitely looking for more info.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can definitely get that for you. Library conversations. I've been speaking with the director's office of the library, and they've agreed to let us table at the library throughout the duration of the engagement phase.
Okay.
So I'm only one person. I can't be everywhere at once. So if anyone really wants to be public facing and have in-person conversations, this is for you. So, if you have a table or if you're near a library, would like to walk visitors through the activity, answer questions about the comprehensive plan and the planning process thus far, this is for you. If there's somewhere else that you'd like to table, maybe the senior center, please let me know. I'll make some contact and see if we can do that. We will assist in scheduling, and we will provide all the necessary materials. Social media videos, this is a little bit of a weird one, I will admit that. So Christina Metcalf has offered to help teach us basically how to record our own videos that we can upload to our own social media accounts, and that can be shared with other boards and commissions accounts, the town accounts. It would be something, go to your favorite place in Brookline, go to your bedroom, look at the tree outside your window and say, this is why I like Brookline, please get involved. So if that's appealing to anyone, we will schedule a time to sit down with Christina. And then boards and commissions. This is a very, very important one. I have been reaching out to select boards and commissions and requesting time on their agenda. Time for, one of us, either me or a steering committee member, to sit down, walk them through a slide deck, and to be present to answer any questions, and just really emphasize the importance of, getting engaged at this point in the process. So the committees you'll see on the bottom left are the committees that the engagement group identified as needing direct outreach. So if you are served on one of those committees, we may ask you to handle the presentation. And if we do not have anyone who serves on a committee and you are comfortable just going out and speaking to committees on something you may know nothing about, we would love for you to do that too.
I don't see the council on aging.
Oh, I will add that. Thank you.
I don't see the advisory committee either.
Advisory
Yes,
committee here.
Oh, no,
Oh,
that's
it's
bicycle
bicycle.
advisory.
No, it's not.
What is there?
Yeah.
No, that's
No.
economic
Okay.
advisory.
No.
It's part of a lot of different names, but I don't buy a standalone. I don't see it on there. So
You're right.
Great. I will make those edits.
thank you.
So like all these committees, is the idea, is it the position of the members of the committee, or the idea that they have their own list and they will send emails to their members?
Exactly, yes.
And how does it work with schools? So schools will be in superintendent's email, or should we work with PTOs?
Absolutely, yes. So on those list of organizations we identified, the superintendent's email newsletter was a potential avenue, as was direct contact with, presidents of all the PTOs around town. And then the last one, I believe this is the last one, flyering, trustee flyering. Take a stack of posters and distribute them however you like. If you have a secret bulletin board that many people walk by, maybe you have a key to it, post one there. If you're going to an event, hand them out, whatever you think is the most effective way. And then finally, the most exciting one is we will be having our workshop. It was originally scheduled for January 21st. But we will be rescheduling until a later date during the engagement phase. It will not impact our timeline. But we just want to make sure that we are prepared, that everything is finalized, and that we are ready to go and collect information. So I will send out a poll. We'll see which dates work for the most people, which dates have the fewest conflicts with other meetings, and we'll go with that. So that concludes my kind of high-level engagement overview. You will receive all this information in email within the next 2 days. One other thing that Kara asked me to share with you all this evening is the timeline for the rest of the plan. So it's very interesting, and I will share this with you. I'll post it with the meeting materials. But as you can see, we have kind of a Gantt chart timeline outlining the last few phases of the comprehensive plan. To cut to the chase, right now, we are expected to end late July, early August. This last orange bubble is approval by the state. So here's where we really end. But I also kind of connected the dots to show what was dependent on each other. And this is what we ended up with. And to me, the real scary part of this is just knowing how productive we have to be and how little time we have to waste moving forward. So, we prefer not to extend the timeline any further, which means adhering to this plan pretty strictly. So I will share this with you all. Feel free to review it at your leisure and, email or call me with any questions. And
Jake, the end of the meeting in the box, is that the same time frame as the end for the survey?
it is, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so next up, we have agency with us to share a new activity that we have all been working on. But before I do that, I do want to give a little background context to this. So we will be reviewing an activity concerned with growth for our upcoming push, which was proposed by Linda Pelkey and Susan Pepziba, after feeling that the activity we reviewed in November did not get at the root of the questions we needed to be asking. So this activity asks, how much growth do we want? Where do we want it? And how do we get there? Well, this is the first time many of you are seeing this activity. We, meaning me, Kara, the agency team, Linda and Paul, have seen this several times over the past few weeks. During the engagement group meetings, some felt that the survey, which was really just kind of a translation of the activity we reviewed at our October meeting, found that asking people to choose 10 actions over 5 areas felt onerous and did not yield much useful information. So taking this feedback, we actually kind of folded it into the growth activity we are set to review tonight. So just to make this clear, this activity is in lieu of the activity that we reviewed last time. And let me speak for myself. I think it's a marked improvement. So the goal of tonight's meeting is to review this new activity, looking at whether we think it will yield information that will allow us to make informed decisions related to the future development of the town. And just want to start it, please share all your thoughts tonight, as this is your chance to really shape the activity. You may have time to provide a little bit of input or wordsmithing later, but you will not be able to get us in or go in with as much detail as you both tonight. So with that, I will hand it over to Jill and Anshul.
Jake, you already covered a lot of them, but last time you might remember we were together as a big group. You all tested out this activity that was a game board. In this case, it was area 3. There was an online survey. Which Brookline icon are you? And then based on that, you got little stickers that you might have been the farmer's market, et cetera, et cetera. And so it was really helpful for us. A lot of good feedback about how to update language on the board, some refinements to the quiz, feedback about the visioning station, which felt like it was just a little bit too restrictive and how many words you could pick to capture your vision for Brookline, and then the game board. And so based on all of that, and based on also engagement committee feedback, we've made a couple of big edits. So the first one is just throughout, we've simplified text a lot across everything. The game board, and Jake, I should make sure that we're saying the same thing. Our understanding was that we were keeping the game board, but it's going to become town-wide.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so instead of 5 areas, there's only 1 game board and it's for the whole town. And so that way there's still a chance for everyone to give feedback that touches on all the different topics that the comprehensive plan needs to cover, from transportation to housing to economic development, parks and services. And then what we're proposing is to add this new activity that's deeper dive specifically on housing. And so that's what we'll be test running with you all tonight to get your feedback there. And so just to quickly zoom way back out, because it's been a bit of time, to talk you through what to expect at the community workshop. There are 5 main stations. So when folks come in, it's the welcome and introduction station. That's where that which Brookline icon are you quiz will be to kind of set the table. Second is challenges and opportunities. So that really digs in on, what are the key challenges and opportunities with Brookline's current path. Station 3 is the draft vision. So this is the activity you saw before. We'll give folks a few more words to share any thoughts on that. And then the 4th station, the townwide strategy. So that's that one game board just focused on townwide. And then the 5th station is the housing deep dive, and it has a few questions that are for the whole town. And then it gets really more specific area by area in terms of housing preferences and housing choices.
Jill, I thought we were expanding that to include commercial.
Right now, it's focused a little bit more on housing, but we should talk about what's going to be most helpful and if that's something we want to blend in.
I think we also need to go over the way the game board is going to work and how that combines with the survey online, because we haven't explained that yet.
Right. So the intention is that the online survey has the same questions as in person. The exception is the icon quiz. It's a little bit more of an in-person icebreaker, and to keep the online survey shorter, that will not be part of it. So you have to show up in person to do the really fun stuff. Sort of a motivating factor for more people to be there. And then we'll have the same game board questions online. But I think the goal is, since it's just one set of questions instead of 5, it'll really help achieve what the engagement committee flagged as being too long as it was. So this will be a lot simpler. And we've also thought about how to keep this 5th station also really streamlined. So easy to do in person, easy to do online, and not add too much time, but add a lot of extra information that'll be helpful for us as a group.
Well, one of the issues with the survey was the order that the topics were presented.
Okay.
And when we were talking about doing it for multiple areas, to my mind, the solution would be to randomize the order somehow. But if we can't do that, then I think it's something we have to talk about as a group, because I think it biases people, because you read the first things first and you're not really contemplating the entire range of options before you start checking things off.
Yep, that's a great point. If it's okay with you, Linda, why don't we focus on test running the brand new activity and getting everyone's feedback on that, and then we can circle back at the end and talk about how it fits in the context of all the activities together.
Okay.
Cool. But I hear what you're saying. If we're not, then people are just going to pick the first ones, and that doesn't get us good data.
Right.
All right, so we're going to test out station number 5. I'm not going to give too much of a preamble, because if you come in at the public workshop, you're going to see the boards and you're not going to get the explanation to go with it. So I mostly just want to let you all simulate that activity. But just to say, we've got some informational boards that set a little bit of context, define terms, give pictures, so everyone has a shared understanding going into the activity. We've got some area-specific boards. So everyone that's in the room has these on paper in front of them. Jake dropped a link in the chat with where to get these boards online if you are joining us virtually tonight.
Which one is it?
Is it for these?
Yes, so the colored ones are the different areas. So last time you all said it would be helpful to have a little bit more background information, more labels, some photos. And so these give a little bit of think of it like a nutrition label for each area to give background context if that's helpful. If someone wants more information to make some decisions, this is their spot to find some of it.
I'm still trying to understand
Yeah, I'm not sure.
the photos of the houses.
Okay.
Circle. Sorry. I think we need more explanation. I think we need more explanation.
Yeah, let's walk through it together.
Okay, so why don't we walk through it together?
Yeah.
So we've got, let me just pull up the handout over here too.
It's the 5 areas. Page 3. I guess one of the questions I had was the 5 zones. How do we determine like those zones? Because people are gonna ask us.
Yeah, are they the?
They're like,
They're not zip codes. It's a bit of a qualitative look at where some natural break in Brookline may be, taking into account factors like development patterns, demographic trends, major roads, trying to think about neighborhood centers and commercial areas where those might make sense to draw boundaries. So it's a combination of a lot of different factors.
I like these though.
Cool.
Does it cover all of Brookline?
It
Divided
does.
up?
It does. So everywhere it's in one of 5 areas. So maybe we go through the area boards first.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so these just give you the overview. So you can see this one's area 1, for example, so in the northeast corner of Brookline. Each of these has a couple of photos to just give kind of a visual sense of some of the places that are part of each of these. You can see here some neighborhood photos and so on. And then each one has some statistics down at the bottom about current population density. It's a number of people per square mile.
Are they the same statistics for each area? I don't mean the numbers, but what's
Right, it's the same, yes, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, thank you.
Same format, variables are the same.
Okay.
Exact numbers vary. So, yeah, so population density, so you can see area 1 is about 16,450 residents per square mile, which is higher than Brookline as a whole. So that bottom bar is always Brookline as well. And then we've got how much of the land is available for new development based on current zoning. And so this is based on a really close look that the Innis team that's part of the agency team looked parcel by parcel at current zoning and capacity, and this is based on their analysis there. And so you can see here, most of the land in this area has limited or no capacity for new development. Again, this is all based on current zoning. And then we've got bottom left corner, open space access. So how many acres of park per person in this area? You can see it's lower than Brookline as a whole.
The 6.1, you're talking area 1?
Exactly. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the bottom right gives you some sense of what the land is used for today in this area. About half of it is low density residential. About a third is high density residential, and the other 12% is business and commercial. And these will all, I mean, you in the room have these like 11 by 17. Picture these as large as this. So everything will be much larger. You just got a little customized packet tonight.
So you have the percentage of land being at 4%. Obviously, the land mass is larger than 4%, right?
Correct. So that's how much of like what percentage of it's not quite of the parcels, but of the land area that is comprised of parcels that could support more development based on their current zoning.
So we could only have, based on current zone,
Exactly.
4% expansion on capacity.
4% of land could be expanded.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's pretty little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I wanted to mention the way we started this with the statement about the Boston region's population growing. I think that the demand is really coming from the employment. I'm wondering if we could talk about that instead of, because with the birth rates and the migration being upended the way it is right now, I'm not sure it's truthful. And I think the demand is being driven by the jobs.
I think you jumped ahead a little bit, Linda. We haven't quite made it to that board in the room yet. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Well, it was presented somewhere in here. I've seen it.
It is.
So
It is somewhere, but we haven't quite made it there yet. So we're on the area boards right now.
Can you move the map down for those people not at the table?
So you're looking for Linda?
Yeah, I'm just looking at sort of placemakers on the map. Do we need it to be a little more defined? We've got the whole map of Brookline, but when people are looking at some of these characteristics, are they seeing, is this Beacon Street, Beacon Street, I mean, we've looked at that for adding on to second stories a lot. The planning board has, been looking at that because we could get a lot more development if we added to some of these single story commercial areas. So I don't know if that's taking that into consideration, because I don't know, where is the 4%? What are you looking at here? I mean, when you say that.
Yeah, we can share that specific analysis so y'all can take a closer look. I think it was a few parcels along Beacon Street. I think there's a little bit along Com Ave, although a lot of that is in BU ownership, so it might have capacity from a zoning perspective, but what happens there, I mean, it's kind
Yeah,
of-
I mean, I'm just, because planning board looks at zoning all the time. We're looking at,
Totally.
is
Yep.
it is it because it's, why is it only 4%? When it's here near all these, public transportation and, close to town and, all that kind of stuff. So is it because it's mostly single family residences?
That is
And that
possible.
has no intention of being built out anymore? I mean, it brings to mind what, some of these questions.
No, and I think it's a really good question too, because one of the things we were trying to figure out is, this is based on current zoning, and a big question for the community is how does what's happening with current zoning match with with what Brookline needs for the future? And
Right.
so we don't want it to be
Critical.
something that's set in
yeah.
stone, but that's something that this process could choose to make a difference.
Well, that's why, like, when they do go to do the survey, it's key for those who live in that area. So, I would like to see that as a question, like, what area do you live in?
Right.
All right, so we can pin that back as far as, yeah, it's great for someone to say, hey, put up a 15-story building, right?
Yeah.
But I live over in zone 5.
Right,
It's like,
Right.
Right,
like
but it's
they-
somewhere else, not near me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yep. We do have that question on there. So yeah, totally agree.
I just want to underline what Linda Hammond was saying about potential for other areas. Now we've got the new state law on ADUs.
Right.
So does that increase the 4%? Like, that's by right. Anyone can do that.
That's true.
Family houses.
Yeah, good question.
Who's that? Bring- so,
I was gonna ask that, Jack.
Oh, excellent. You two are on the same wavelength.
There's a new state law that says by right, anyone.
Which is to say the 4% is in use.
That's fair. We can clarify.
I assume that does include all the properties that have been rezoned on Harvard Street. They
Correct.
have capacity for more than what they have.
It
Yes.
will in area 2.
It doesn't have to be
Harvard Street
someone.
is an area too.
Doesn't.
Yeah, no,
have to be
I know.
someone,
But
It will
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
A family member, and it could be like an investment property.
I guess I would like to ask
Yeah.
the committee to think about these in terms of, does it seem like meaningful feedback to hear about what people want in, for instance, area 1? Is that specific enough?
Could you repeat that? I couldn't, hear it.
Sure. Yeah, I was just saying I would like to hear from the committee their thoughts on whether or not asking about particular types of development for an area such as Area 1. And I think this is probably one of the smallest areas. But does it make sense to get those preferences on a whole area basis? Is that even specific enough? That's what Linda Hamlin's question made me ask, because, she thinks that the extra capacity is on Beacon Street, and then the ADU thing, yeah, that's another thing. But I just have a hard time by general responses for an area that's that varied, I guess is what I'm getting at. So I just want other people to think about that, whether they think it's.
Yeah, I think, if I may, yeah, I think I agree with Lynn. I mean, I think that's exactly the discussion we had during the last meeting we were, and I think the point was being made then that could we have a more granular list? And I remember there was a lot of back and forth, and during that discussion, that
Yeah.
I think where we ended up saying that's maybe too complicated, so we want to keep it to this, 5 areas, but I think the compromise, if I remember correctly, that was suggested was that at least in the online survey, there will be an opportunity for people to perhaps pinpoint specifically where they want, let's say more density or high rises or no high rises or single family and so on. So I'm not sure if that's still the plan or.
We should talk through it in the context of when we get to the part of this is the activity, we should circle back to that very question. We've got some places right now for people to write in where they want to see certain things, so they can either choose from some options that are more generic, or they can write in specific places like along Beacon Street,
Mm.
for example. So,
I have a question just about the, because this is what they're gonna look like, these, yeah.
but
and-
bigger,
But bigger.
yeah.
Maybe it's a field ground thing for me,
Hmm.
but it took me a while to realize that the crosshatch was the area I'm supposed to focus on.
That's
Because
helpful.
everything else is brighter.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
Helpful.
it seemed to me that
Mhm.
those need to be clearly outstanding.
Yep.
With perhaps the rest of it more receded.
Great. No, thank you.
I would say, I mean, there's a lot, with any engagement activity, there's always that balance between getting the information that you need and making it accessible to people so that they're not spending like hours in the engagement thing, which will just make everybody aggravated. And I do think actually though that giving people the opportunity to like comment more, some people will fill that out. And of course, it's like kind of like the people who care the most about a specific area. But I think that's still valuable. And, you know, I think we can trust people to engage. The people who want to engage more will engage more. And I think we're giving them opportunities to do that.
All right, so basically we've got the 5 areas with those explainer boards that are just informational. If someone wants that data, they've got it. And then if you're online, if you go to packet number 1, is that right? These are some other informational boards that'll be at this new housing deep dive station. We've got one board that talks about typologies. Like most of y'all in the room have found it. So it's got some photos of different types of housing, and we tried to pick photos that were representative of some of the newer development that's happening within each of these types of housing in Brookline currently. So new townhouses, new mid-rise, et cetera. So it's a good trying to give the community, if they want to see something and they pick it, this is the kind of thing the market is producing right now. And we've got some information about how many units, how that compares to inclusionary zoning, and at what point 4 units or more that triggers developers to be required to provide affordable housing as part of their development.
So when I look at these pictures, I think that many people in town will say they don't want, based on these pictures, townhouses or mid-rise. And that's, I think, in part due to the architecture of the new development as opposed to the housing topology.
Yeah, that's very point.
I agree.
They're badly designed. That's the problem.
Yeah, they're terrible
I mean,
examples.
even if they, I mean,
Everyone
there's some
accept-
buildings that have flat roofs that are okay, you know, we don't have to go, we don't have to be Victoriana all the time. But we wouldn't even allow the townhouse because the garage is like the main feature of the entire building. So maybe it's a matter of getting some better examples that, you know, would be more acceptable. Because I mean, it's a housing form, you know, it's true. I mean, these are also, 5, 8 stores, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay. I think we could find some better examples that might be actually attractive and people would want to live in.
That's a perfect.
Linda, I'll reach out to
I
you.
think
We'll
they look
brainstorm some
perfect.
examples. Well,
I'll look. I really, sure.
It also gets to, I think, another point, which is that everyone gets really annoyed with these kinds of development. Like, this is what's driving people to be really angry, right? You know, like, the more of these kinds of developments that, someone knocks down an old Victorian and puts up this. So is there a way to get at that? Like, to ask people, what is it that they really don't want in town, right?
Well-
You'd have people saying, we don't want these Amazon boxes, right? Like, there are 2 things going on at once. One is how dense the units are, but the other is the architecture of the units.
Well, and it's the consequence of building it.
It's kind of like, how do you want your neighborhood to look?
Yeah.
And this feels consequent free to me. to,
Like the townhouse image in particular is inflammatory.
Yeah, that's right.
See, we all
Not a
agree
fan
on
of
that.
The low rises.
I mean, and I would say like personally, I like contemporary design, but I do feel like that image is gonna be inflammatory for people who really
Yeah,
react badly to that.
no, that's helpful. It sounds like Linda Hamlin has some good ideas, and so we can switch these out.
Well, yeah, we'll
Other
see. I
ideas.
mean, the thing is, you know, when you have single families, we have single families that are all different housing types here still. We have duplexes that don't have to be from, I mean, all the, you know, I guess the things that people, you know, really like, you know, were built in a different time when you could, you know, spend all your money on doodads and trim. And if we're going to be doing affordable housing, we've got to, you know, we've got to find some middle ground where we have some, you know, we try to encourage good architecture, but we don't necessarily have to make it look like Williamsburg or I don't know. You know
well,
what
but I don't think we want to game this either. I mean,
No, but we want, you know, let's right. I mean, there's triplex and fourplex, but that, you know, we're all well, maybe this is too charged here. But there are dwelling units, probably, you know, with the height restrictions, even that example on the for the ADU might not be possible because of, you know, trying to put some height on it and getting these dormers and all that kind of stuff, which is, you know, it's attractive, but it depends on how the state comes down for how much restriction we can put on that or allowance for pitched roofs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, let's put a pin on this. And
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, we're in the weeds. We're in the weeds, but
Yeah.
but
let's.
people need to be prepared because these buildings were proposed and they could get built and look just like that. So I don't think, you know, having prettier pictures is really even fair. So,
maybe
Well, but you want people need to know what styles are about. When you say a townhouse, what does that mean? It means they're ganged together, basically,
mhm.
right?
Townhouse can
And the
look like
mid-rise is,
brownstone, you know, that would be started as far as, you know, along Beacon Street.
so. What I'm getting from this is we want, you know, all the pictures to be on a relatively even scale, whatever that means, equally ugly or attractive.
But I
oops,
think
ouch, yeah.
variety, right? Like we can't pretend that everything is gonna be like old tiny. Victorian.
Yeah.
Maybe each of them can actually have multiple pictures. Each of them will be smaller. To me, I think the main point of the exercise need to focus people on being able the density and the height and to understand how much, you know, that is acceptable, you know, architectural and such, you know, that's something that can be figured out down the line.
But do
Maybe there could be like a QR code on this that has more pictures, because I don't like the idea of having like lots of tiny pictures.
Yeah, I agree.
But no one will. That's too much.
But do we also want to get a flavor of what people, if they are in favor of building more, or regardless of what does get built, what does that style look like? Do we almost have like, you know, for single family houses, we have 4 of these, which ones do you like? So we can kind of.
And I think that's what Susan was getting at earlier. We need questions about density and design.
Yes.
Could there
Okay.
be like
I think we
a
can Susan for a while.
screen at the workshop that just has a slideshow of different types of housing? Because then you wouldn't have to have a QR code and you would have lots of pictures for people who wanted to understand more than just looking at the one board.
Is
I'm
it
gonna
going to
interrupt. I don't
translate
think
to the
we're asking-
online survey?
I don't think we're asking people here for style. I think we need to. I think that's part of implementation. I think we need to have Linda Hamlin choose better representative photos of the townhome and mid-rise. I don't think, for example, we should have lots of photos for mid-rise and show like a brownstone, because brownstone will not be built in all brick in modern construction in the next 20 years, right? So I think we have to be reasonable about what could actually get built, not be Disney about this, but also not confuse the messaging. And I think I'm responding connected to your comment about let's focus here on number of units and then ask how in a different.
Agreed.
Okay.
And I know I've been sitting on a thought for a moment. Do you have that in mind? Do you remember what your thought was from earlier?
Yeah.
I was gonna pile on the original point.
Okay.
I just want to.
You know, as Jake put it, the assortment of fixtures should be, kind of, roughly equivalent.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we all agree that the townhouse image is like ghastly. And, if that's the image, no one's gonna say, oh, I think it should be townhouses. So
White factory.
it's been a good discussion. I think everyone understands the concern.
And let's take one final comment from this from Kathleen.
So I think it would be good if there's like a giant disclaimer on here that we're just looking at density.
Yeah.
And not residential styles, because that will be very clear to people that
Right.
we don't care about flat roofs here, we care about the number of units.
It's not about styles. Yeah.
I mean, if that's
So,
the
so,
case,
so
what
the
you
only
would
thing
do
I'm saying on the
is-
brownstones, for example, right, yeah, we may not be constructing law, but also there's a part of our society that's into historic and preservation.
Right.
All right, so they're not thinking about expanding on housing, so the style of what they're looking for. So I just want to kind of keep that on.
Well, this is gonna come up in what questions are we asking people to respond to this with? What are the questions that we're asking?
Coming up
Yeah.
short.
Right, right.
There's a desire for a quick walkthrough of materials to go on this.
Door number 2.
All right. So we've also got, and this is, I think, Linda, the board you were referring to earlier. That talks a little bit about population projections, number of pipeline units that are currently planned, and then what's left essentially to get to that. What population projections would suggest if trends continue as they are?
Yeah, and I still reiterate that the need for housing is being driven by the increase in employment. And all the surrounding towns to us received innovation grants to help catalyze that, except we didn't. And so I just think it's relevant for people to understand that it's not some kind of organic internal thing driving it. It's what's happening around us. It's the growth in Longwood and downtown and everywhere else, the seaport, that's driving the demand. And so,
Carol?
anyway.
Yeah,
So-
Carol, I see your hand up.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm listening to you and one device and hearing and speaking on another. Am I getting feedback
Yeah.
on?
No, you're
Okay,
good.
There you go.
Okay, so just you guys press a little bit on the demand drivers. It's as much about the reduction in household size as it is for population. So work on that, okay?
Maybe we could just list some of the different factors that are influencing it.
With that as the only factor, it's going to be too easy to say, we're not growing. The demand for housing is still there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like you can't really say the population in Brookline is growing unless the housing size is growing. The household size is growing, and which it's clearly not.
Which it's not. Right?
Yeah.
Well, it is a very interesting thing about where the title, the Greater Boston Region's population is growing, whereas actually there's an exodus from Greater Boston and a lower birth rate. So the combination, and that I don't understand how that could be.
I'll just say, in the preface on this, I think you need to make it clear for people, it aligns with what people are seeing, and they buy the premise of the need for more. Okay.
I wonder, I think there are several things here. One is, this projection, this is just for Brookline. It is just based on current trends. It is not saying it's because of this and that. It's just taken, based on the historical trends projected in the future. We spend a lot of time, I think we can all align on this, right? I think it may be helpful to give, talk about maybe, this tells the absolute number, but also tells, what is this as a percentage of the whole unit, just, but this is just sort of like, the projections based on trends, that's it.
Right.
And then I think it's maybe a second thing is to decide, okay, do we want to talk about any of the qualitative factors that may be behind the need for more or less housing? We could put it, or we could just not put it, right? I think
Mhm.
the discussion we had before was maybe we don't want to bias people one way or another. Probably people have an idea. Everyone has some idea of what is happening, And anyway, there's everyone knows about the cost of housing that is really high, right? So even if there's no growth in population, the cost of housing without new houses will still remain really high. So we may just keep it factual, say, yeah, this is the projection, this is the absolute number, this is what it is in percent of the Brookline units. And everyone can interpret.
I'd just like to understand this page a little better, in the sense that I'm curious, how long would you say that it's taken for 860 units to be in the pipeline? Has it been 3 years, 7 years, or 15 years? Because that would help me understand then a 740 projection, right? Whereas right now, I feel like if there's 860 in the pipeline now, we'll have 740 more in 3 or 4 years. That's the impression that it leaves me with. So clearly we're not, that isn't the case. So should I understand the 860 units is that those are the product of 15 years of development activity?
I think it might have been a 5-year look back or an 8-year look back.
Well, I don't remember when things would have been started to be put into that pipeline, like at what point they started the permitting process.
I can look into that and give you an answer.
Is another way to answer this question as to when do we expect these 860 units to be built?
Looks like 2035, right?
By then, but sooner.
But is it within 2 years from now or within 10 years from now?
Well, and some of it has been built.
No, I think these are all new, so.
No, the 860, it says these are housing units that were recently constructed or permitted and coming soon.
Might be some that were completed last year, so they're part of that 10-year look, but we can figure out the exact numbers.
Some of them are already done.
I mean, another way to ask my question would be sort of over the last 10 years, let's say.
Yep.
What has been the annual increase in actual completed available for sale housing?
Yeah, so we can pull this one up, but this is from 2010 to 2020. So there's 5 years that are kind of in between the two numbers. But Brookline's growth rate was about 0.6% each year.
Can you translate that into a number of housing units?
The number of new housing units. So basically over that 10 years, Brookline added, it's somewhere between 1,500 and 1,600 new units.
In 10 years?
In 10 years.
So 160 units a year?
I don't think we can say that is going to continue, though. That's a real leap, given the uncertainty we're living in, but.
I think it's hard to put that into context too. Like, what does that really mean? Like, how many more people are we? Like, how does that track with population growth? And how does that compare to other surroundings?
So how that compares to other surroundings, for comparison, over that same time period, Boston was about 1.1% growth and Cambridge was 1.4. So it's half-ish, give or
There's
take.
nothing that motivates people competing with other towns, cities.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Pudding Stone in Hancock Village is an apartment building that we constructed with about 330 units,
Yeah.
So that can, it's a
Yeah.
big boost in the number.
Yeah, I mean, any 1 year could have a major, increase or decrease, but the average is sort of probably instructive.
Yeah.
160 per year over the next 15 years.
Yeah.
And it helps you see that if it's one large development, it can make a really big difference. So we're talking about these magnitudes of numbers, so. Al?
So I had a question about the message this page is trying to convey. If, you look at it and the implication is that, and I know the fine print says more than this, but the implication is, there's going to be 1,600 new units. And I mean, I understand what that means, but, folks coming to the workshop, are less likely to understand what it means. And okay, there's 860 in the pipeline. So the point of the exercise, and is implied here, the point of the comp plan is to figure out where should the other 740 go. I don't think that's where we are. I think where we are is, there's a trend scenario that has, roughly 1,600 units. If nothing happens to change that trend, and at the end of the day, there are alternative futures that, that might have more than that, but, if we're not saying that in the exercise, I understand, but it sounds like we're saying the opposite, which I don't think we need to.
No, that's a good point. I think we've tried to figure out the right language to leave open-ended as much as we need to while still providing that context. So yeah, y'all's thoughts on how to best do that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I have another question on the 860 units. Is there a way to indicate percentage low density, medium density,
Oh, we could do that.
high density, so
Yeah.
that
So it
the
is,
sense of
is that the same? Yeah.
So I wonder if you could display color code.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty understandable. Hey,
great.
beside it, but the one thing I think it's really, we're discussing Brookline, so Greater Boston doesn't make sense to me to have it in such a big title. This is about, we're planning for the town, for this town, not
We
for
rejected
Greater
them
Boston.
200 years ago.
Okay.
so-
Yeah, and that's the only thing. Otherwise, I think, we can't have everything in this page, but I think it's clear, and the percentages of over the years and how many, that doesn't do a thing for me. Sorry, David, it just doesn't, that doesn't, mean, I wouldn't care about that coming in. I'm not in the planning world, so, a lot of people coming to this won't be coming from the planning world. So the percentages of this or that, or how many, wouldn't matter so much.
I think knowing how many of that 800 is actually already built or being constructed would be helpful.
Or just the years of where that number can.
So I have a question about the bottom chart, distributing the new housing. It's almost like I can't really consider that except from like my own personal experience without understanding how it impacts the town. If we go with high density, are we building a new school in an area? If we go with low density, does it get absorbed and we don't have to consider that? I mean, to me, that's, what
Trade-off.
infrastructure are we gonna have to build with each scenario? I can't really, I mean, I love low density, that'd be great, seems like, but I don't know if that's really the best option because I don't understand what's gonna be like the financial consideration for each option.
Well, it's not just that, it's the.
Linda, you brought up sewer, for instance,
Well, yeah, and it's the question of, where is there room in the parks? Where is there room in the schools? Where it is not helping answer that question. That's what I meant by saying it seemed consequence free. Yeah, you can want it, but what does that really mean? And we're still not answering that.
And I will say, I think it's very hard to kind of educate lay people on this entire issue and to understand it fully in order to be able to like build it out with a totally informed decision. I think that, we can, I think it makes sense to kind of list them the trade-offs or like things that come with these different types of housing, but I think that if we're trying to, we also run the risk of like trying to do too much, right? And that's again, that's that balance between getting detailed information and kind of like informed decision making and making it accessible.
Yeah. Right, like for instance, can we even achieve 740 units with the low density option? Is each one of these feasible to achieve the goal? Okay.
It would have to be a lot more focused on HD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we proceed? Sure.
So I feel like at this point, we're at 8 o'clock, so I would propose that we take about 20 minutes for everyone to actually fill out the worksheet, do it from your perspective as a person, is if you are walking into the public meeting and filling this out with your own opinions. And then we will, yeah, exactly. So for those of you that are online, it is the one that has handout in the name, which is packet number 4. So it's 2 pages. And then there is also a board that's in the room here, which I'm just going to have up on the screen while we do this. So if you're virtual, if you can just drop a number in chat between 1 and 7, we'll put a sticky dot on the board for you. And you can write Y in the chat. We'll also get that up on the board here in the room. If you're in the room, we've got some stickers that we will pass out. Oh, actually, they're already up here. So just put a sticker where you think on this spectrum, how much housing would support Brookline's future vision. 740, the right number, would be somewhere over here. If you would like to see more, somewhere over there.
Well, I'm having a hard time with just the way this is worded. Yeah, so.
That's really helpful. Why don't, Linda, why don't we just give everyone 20 minutes and then we'll do, we'll get all the feedback that's on everyone's mind after that.
So what are we asking us online to do? I'm sorry.
So if you can tell us on a scale of 1 to 7, using these numbers as a guidepost, where you would like a sticker to go on the board in the room that looks just like this, we'll get a dot up there for you.
Well, since we haven't determined the vision yet, and I'm not sure, I mean, there's a lot that goes into supporting that vision that's beyond housing. So I'm just having a really hard time. It's just the whole way this is framed. And our engagement group said 5 times that we thought this needed to have a range of it that included commercial and it included preservation. And it's not happening here. So I'm concerned.
Okay, Linda, why don't you move on to the next activity and we will readdress these thoughts when we reconvene.
Says the chat's disabled on my computer.
There was a previous page that people are filling out how do I get to that from here?
They
Or
will
can I-
be in
Oh, this one.
in the chat.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. All right, I'll just look at this.
So in filling this out, question 1 obviously is the one where you have 5 circles to fill out and you decide where to put them. But from question 2 on, are we answering all of these irrespective of what we said in question 1?
Correct.
Okay.
Take each one independently.
Okay.
But if you didn't fill out any circles in question 1, then you shouldn't answer the question.
That's fair.
Like,
But that's probably more nuanced than most people will think through.
yeah, but you can set it up automatically.
Yeah,
Online you can, but in person you
Oh.
can't. Yeah.
Should I shut up now and wait? Because I've just
I
made,
think-
yeah, I agree. I
Yeah,
think
why
the
don't we
questions are weird to me.
Okay.
I just think they're, we're talking about types of housing, not how much housing. It's such a, I don't know, the type of housing, what we need, not just housing. It's it.
This is helpful. Let's give everyone about 15 more minutes and then we'll circle back.
Okay.
In question 2,
Mhm.
can we do more than 1 circle per area?
Yes.
So I have also a question. It seems to me that if I'm trying to figure out where my 5 circles are, that I should be looking at, for example, the percent of land available, right? So if I'm trying to be educated about this and one area says it's got 4%, I mean, is that what we've got area 4, limited
we want-
capacity?
People to answer this question based on their knowledge and understanding of the area. We don't want them to refer back to the 4% or 5% necessarily, because that's based on existing zone. And so the zoning can change.
Absolutely. All right. Absolutely.
So like area 4 could have ADUs distributed all across of it. You could just, area 4 would be all ADUs. And that's your.
Well, it'll be done when you wake up in the morning, I promise.
Are you cheating over there?
Well, this is kind of a fundamental question about, I mean, you're asking people how much is needed. How do you expect people to know that? I mean, it's kind of based on nothing. It's just weird.
Are we, this is our quiet time?
Yes, quiet
Yeah,
time.
I can't.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Right time,
It felt like.
get back to your mat.
That's spatially, it's, yeah, can do. No.
You asked me. You say where, well. I don't know the other part of the town that is. I think that in general.
But I think it's fine. I mean, you can want to comment on the just this there as well.
Yeah.
Can somebody flip the screen that we're looking at online? Oh, thank you.
About 5 minutes left. Yeah.
I was surprised. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, oh no. Yeah, I thought it was.
I have to say, the refreshing sits in here with the.
Yeah.
I think you've got a few folks that are still wrapping up, and if you finish the worksheet, we've also got this one question on the board in the room. If you don't mind coming up and putting a dot on that.
Okay.
What
Dot
code do you
with it.
need on the dot?
Yeah, this is tricky. If you want to tell us why, you can write more on the statement of that.
That's my guess, but Gotta do numbers in.
Seems like not always fun.
It's like here in the Senate, it's a 7 for me and a 1 for Linda.
Could be blindfolded.
Yeah.
More than.
Okay. I will make comment.
Oh, great.
I got it. Your comments on there. You'll give it to us afterwards. We'll be good to go. Excellent.
Thanks for bringing in snacks again.
Yeah.
So good.
We had a New Year's resolution, you just threw it out. the window, right? Actually, this is how I keep myself on a New Year's resolution. Take it, move it offside.
I do think
Yeah.
it's gonna happen.
So that's what's confusing for me is, are we saying that new policies would not, like, this is what we get if we don't do anything? And if we do something, do we not get that?
I think
Something else.
It's a fair interpretation, that it would, this probably is a thing reduce less.
Drive down.
Interpret things. That's fine. But I do think we have hope.
Oh, this is. Yeah. Like. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Anybody else see yourself in a dot up here?
The children
That
figured
if
it out.
we increase
That's
housing.
So you got a couple more y'all.
Tax-based services.
Right,
Because it
because
could,
there'll be
there'll be increases.
All right, I think everyone's just about had a chance, so why don't we,
I'm.
Come back together as a group.
It's a new figure for me.
I'm gonna pause you all for just a minute so that we can come back together as a big group and talk. It sounds like you're having a good conversation. That'd be good for everyone to hear too.
Yeah,
So,
we haven't finished. We have to finish.
oh yeah, that'd be great. Give you another minute.
Okay.
Thank you.
So. They come first. So. Put it out.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks everyone for taking a few minutes to test run this. So I think what we'll do is we'll try to do a round robin. So we'll want to hear from everybody. We'll go around the room. If you can share one thing that you thought worked well, one question you have that we should talk about as a group for potential improvement. And Linda, I wanted to ask you, would you like to go first or last? You're muted, so we can't hear you.
I guess I can go last.
Okay, sounds good. Any brave volunteer here want to kick us off or online?
Should we just go around?
No, we can, yeah, maybe.
Great, okay.
Well, that might be you.
I can suggest, sure.
What a fine spot.
I think in the beginning, I was a little confused. I know we have all these areas,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
still, like, just by looking at this picture itself, I think that we have like major roads, like Beacon Street, like something like that. Washington, Harvard, like just all, it's still a little confusing to tell where is where, even though I think I know stuff like this. I also feel like, just re-emphasizing like which areas, which like area one, like for example, like St. Mary Street, like something like that, will help people to like just refresh the memory instead of going back to the maps all the time. I do like, even though I feel like it's a little bit intimidating to think about, like 'cause there are a lot of areas I'm not very familiar with, maybe just like due to encouraging people, like even though you don't if you don't know these area, maybe just think about their area that you're familiar with and then just like put a note in there, because it's just like a little bit intimidating because I'm not really familiar with area 4, let's say, or like that's how like I'm a little bit familiar with that, but just not something that I feel like I have a say to it. But in general, I like that we have a preference of saying like where we want things to be. Even though I actually don't have a lot of comments on the first page. More comments on the second one, the question 3. In the beginning, I feel like it's very overwhelming, but then if I get into the details of it, especially looking at like the where, I think you give a lot of good examples. Especially, I like that, you know, you talk about like the infill side, you give example of like, you know, clustered on large sites. I just really like these examples for me specifically because I'm not that familiar with the planning languages, and I like these ideas. And then it really gives me thoughts on like, okay, I think I see this parking lot in somewhere that I feel like can be
Yeah.
repurpose and give more vivid picture of where I want, I think my, my expectation for future housing. So I really like that. Again, filling 5 area is a little bit too much for me specifically. Again, like I'm not familiar with everything. So just give people a sense that you don't need to fill everything. If you only have some thoughts about one area, just think about that. And then really encourage people to look at all these examples that you have there. Maybe you can highlight that a little bit more. I don't know how, but I just really like those examples.
Oh, thank you.
That's super helpful. That's it. Cool, thank you.
So that's high bar.
Yeah, I personally quite like this exercise. I think it will yield very also helpful data, especially question number 3. And I think it manages to strike the right kind of balance between, keeping these things are at a high level for these 5 areas, but get into the different levels of density and then provided space for kind of more detailed comments. I personally felt that actually question 3 is sufficient. Questions is kind of like, if you have a response to question 3, you can derive, 1 and 2. So, perhaps we want to simplify or we want to add other things, like similar things on say like commercial, maybe we can just have one question. You may want, I'm not sure if it's worth adding to this question also an option of no new housing, because I suspect some people may want to select that option.
Thank you.
I'm kind of an amalgam of the two, of Ron and Maxine. I had a lot of trouble, like grasping like where I lived. Me along, because there were no markers for it, and I'm kind of on a border. And so it was really hard to figure out. So I wasted a lot of time looking for it. And I also actually liked, as you're suggesting, the second page was more specific, and I was so busy trying to figure out which area was which, and what it covered, because there weren't enough landmarks in those little maps, not even the roads, and nothing was clear to me. And I grew up in this town, I should know where everything is. And so my comment actually was, about the question why I thought taller buildings belong along corridors and smaller buildings belong in residential areas. Basically, it was my generic response to what I wanted to say. And then I realized that was covered in there, but it was so tiny that I wasn't honed in on that. But now that you're talking about that, that probably is the better, gives you really what you want. And I would like to see commercial blended in here, because that's key to the town's survival. And having everything, as a taxpayer in a single family home, and everything can't be on that, because people are gonna disappear out of town. They can't do it.
Oh, boy. Yeah, so, just stayed away from area 1. Figure along Beacon Street, along Route 9, as far as, along corridors. ADUs is like, it can be anywhere, you know what I mean? It's just like impossible. So, but, 4 and 5 have probably the biggest opportunities for, ADUs and such. As far as densely populated, like for self-refined, area 5, well, these got part of self-refined. Justin Hill West is developing, like see something develop around Paddington Circle, area 3, and 2 and 3 are kind of like along Beacon Street, So like that's a lot of to know the lay of the land where you're gonna really drop it. What was it? A small multi-family house. I mean, that could be anywhere. It's probably more than likely going to be condos versus multi-family. The way they're developing things now. So, anyways, that's what it is. And definitely want to see more about the commercial because that's Chestnut Hill West. They have it as the zoning to be 50% commercial and a 14-story building. All right, so it's a hotel with residential above it, as an example. But that's gonna be an aggressive model. The town has to tackle, no one's gonna be able to afford to live here in 10 years, you know? So.
Thank you.
anyways.
All of this talk about orienting yourself to the map, which I looked at this when I came in and I was like, oh, maybe we should have landmarks so that people understand. It makes me wonder if the icebreaker would be maybe like find where you live on this map and put a pin in it so that you kind of like get a sense of like where you are on the map before you even start doing any of the engagement activities. I personally have a fairly good mental map of like most of these areas except for area 5, which I haven't. It's like a part of Brookline that I have never been to. Didn't realize it's part of Brookline. Don't know anybody who lives there.
Is that Chestnut Hill West?
We kind of talk with a little southern draw down there. And we play country music.
And so I didn't know if I should fill out question 3 because I was like, I have no like mental map of that area to understand like what my preferences might be of like what types of housing. So that's what's like. So yeah, I didn't know like if we want people to opine on areas that they are not familiar with or not.
Yeah, it makes me think we might put out a box of like, I'm less familiar with this area.
Yeah. And I was, you know, as people have kind of commented earlier today, I would be interested to know, like, what are the consequences of my choices? But I don't know if that needs to be part of this engagement activity because that seems like a lot.
But that's why I was looking for the person to tell where you live, right? And because they're gonna be more of an expert in that neighborhood, in that area versus the others.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I just got a request at work to estimate the maximum development capacity of the campus and thus how many students we can accommodate, like the maximum number of students the campus can accommodate. And it's an interesting question because it's not just like academic space, right, that we are putting in these buildings, but there's all sorts of other space types that we have with it. And so I've been thinking about like, oh, how would we actually estimate this? It's like looking at like a kind of like ratios of space types that you need and where they would be accommodated, right? Like you can't just put anything anywhere. So that is kind of like a complexity beyond the scope of it, but it kind of speaks to like, oh, consequences. Like you can't just like put housing anywhere. But that's kind of, I feel like this is a good starting point.
Cool. Thanks, Marissa.
Yeah, I had a hard time doing this with all the areas because I'm just not familiar with all of the areas. What I liked more was the questions. So you've got kind of, it says distributed throughout town along major corridors. I think the question is, what are your preferences among those? And then for question 3, the A through H, I think it's what are your preferences for those as opposed to necessarily where they go? Because if you're asking me where they should go, I can tell you where they might go in my neighborhood, but I can't tell you about Richard's neighborhood. And so one way to reframe this, where it might give us better information, is to just put kind of these, I don't know what to call these, how these distributed, what are your preferences for those? Like I can say my preferences are throughout an area and along major corridors, but I don't necessarily want these concentrated towers, right? And then if I look at A through H, I can give you what my preferences among those are, and then I can tell you about my neighborhood. And I think that would give us information that is not just people guessing because they have to, they have to fill it out, I don't want people to tell me what should happen in Richard's neighborhood when they've never been there. Right, so that would be my suggestion, to just ask about general preferences as well as your own neighborhood. Or if you know a lot about another neighborhood or have strong feelings about a neighborhood, another area, to do those. I have a real problem with the board, because I think it's setting out an assumption that if we increase housing, we're not gonna have luxury housing, and that we're gonna have more resources, but there may be more expenses, more infrastructure, more schools, et cetera. I also think comparing us to Boston and Cambridge is a little bit misleading, because both of them have so much more commercial development than we do. That's why Cambridge has the growth that it has. It's got a tremendous amount of commercial growth, so they've got a great tax base. So again, like, we've got to be thinking about commercial. If, or, and said, our taxes are just going through the roof already, and you can't even begin to think about affordable housing with the tax base that we have.
Yeah, one quick follow-up question. So you were saying, like, if people answer A through H in general, like, so it'd be more like a town-wide add-on that would do that, or?
I think that people have preferences, right? I think you could say, do you want large 18-story towers concentrated in particular areas? Do you want to spread development through an area? Do you want to spread it along the corridors? You know, the commercial corridors, and I think people have clear preferences about those that are probably independent of the area.
Yep, that makes sense.
Because if you don't have a corridor somewhere, then it's not gonna be your preference.
Yep.
You know, so I think those, and I think the A through H are really interesting. I think that's been said. Which ones do we like? And then, yeah, for me, I can tell you in my neighborhood, I can't tell you, you know, I might be able to say Coolidge Corner, but certainly asking me to do that for the entire town and all of the areas, I'm not gonna give you good information, because I don't have it to give.
Yeah.
So I'm worried people just fill it out
Yeah.
because that's the exercise, and
That
then
makes
we're
sense.
getting false information.
Right.
I think we gotta have like one spot to say none, like, say if you don't want 99-story towers or bigger, you just would say no. Want to see that anywhere, fine, you know? But if you don't have none, so at least you have 0 as an option, you know, so I think that gives people a little bit of scale.
So Max, real quickly, then I want to make sure we
Yeah,
get.
I think that's good. I think we'll use it. I think we should give people an option to opt out of filling out any responses to areas that they're not familiar with. But in areas that they're familiar with, I think it's fine to keep this format. Even, you know, I live in neighborhood, whatever, area 2, but I'm not that far from 3, and I go to 4, so I have thoughts. I don't think, you know, I should be precluded.
100%.
And we'll have information from where people are, so we can, you know, interpret it in different ways.
But
I would not want to lose, you know, there's already not a lot of granularity to Linda's earlier point, so like, I wouldn't want to lose what we have.
But if that's the case, I would say frame it as fill it in for the areas that you're knowledgeable.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So I like, that said, I think Susan's point was very important, and the solution that you just suggested, you know, being clear to people, you know, don't feel like you have to fill it out for
Yep.
a place you don't, you still get uneven information, you know, 700 people come, you're gonna get brilliant stuff, you're gonna get guesswork stuff.
Yeah.
But I think on balance, I think Max is right, you know, keep the ability to get this information, make it clear to people, they shouldn't feel bad and feel like they have to guess. That's, we should recognize that we're asking on the big page, we're asking people to do something in 3 dimensions. And it's hard. I guess I'm down with I'm for keeping the format, but I think, you know, I think what people could have trouble with is, you know, you're asking people to, you know, to do a matrix of three variables, the five areas. The 1 through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different types of housing product, and A through H, 8 different kinds of places that, you know, all of which are in some areas and some aren't. You know, people who think dimensionally will have a great time doing this, and those who don't won't. Again, I think if you make it, you know, have a disclaimer that will make people feel okay from, I think is the best way. On the, what I think you can count on people doing is, if someone wants to say, I don't want 9-story buildings in Brookline, they're gonna write that on the page, whether they can figure out the matrix or not. You know, I don't, no, I don't say it facetiously, I think there's almost zero chance of losing that information.
That's fair.
But I like.
Cool, excellent, thank you.
I found it helpful to clarify my thinking. And so from that standpoint, I think I'm in agreement with the notion that this has got the potential to be quite helpful. What I think I can do is describe how I filled it out to get, like, as an example.
Yeah.
Because but as I think about housing, and more housing in Brookline, I'm thinking about the 740 units specifically, over 15 years. That's about, well, so that's about 150, 160 units a year and so forth. I think it would be good if, while we recognize how those could happen, that we would adopt or recommend policies that would try to spread that as evenly as possible across the whole town. So roughly speaking, that would lead to a 20% increase in each of the 5 areas. So you might say, well, how are you going to get 20% in areas 4 and 5, right? It's all great big sort of things. But ADUs and small multifamily would make sense there. Could we figure out policies that would sort of help make it easier, less expensive? You know, right now they have, you know, virtually zero capacity right under existing zoning. So that is a huge barrier to having them share in the burden of new housing to any degree at all. And yet they should. So to be fair, at the same time, way up at the other end on area 1, 20% would be, you know, 150 units there. Over 15 years, that's 10 units per year. That's not that very many units for them. And it's sort of clear the kinds of areas, you know, where it would be easy for them to absorb 10 new units a year and not even notice it. It's such a small portion of what they currently have. To me, that's faith, right? And so I think of new housing, to get back to Susan's point, as bringing burdens, whether it's schools or transportation or other burdens. And I think that I would like to see us try to have that new burden distributed as evenly as possible across the 5. And they're going to require different policies in each one, in a sense, to really achieve it. And of course, and I also think that the other thing about aiming for that kind of distribution would be that it would reduce the degree of political opposition, the real serious resistance that people are saying. And having a lot of people say that, we all know that means nothing will happen there. You know, so if you've got to find ways to spread this as evenly and make it as unintrusive as we can. And I'll just close by saying I also share sentiments that have been expressed that while I'm in favor of more housing, I mainly am in favor of housing basically that is affordable and supported for low income people who otherwise can't be here. And that I think at least as important in my mind is expanding the commercial tax base. Because the taxes on housing have just gotten really almost unbearable. So I think
Very
that's
helpful. Thank you.
But help me clarify those thoughts,
Yeah.
go through this exercise. So that's why I think that we've got here works.
We applaud.
Pretty well.
Can I make a comment? I really appreciate your thoughts. I think those are really good. You must be a democratic socialist, which I've got the hat for. No, I really think that's important, and I applaud you bringing that up, because I think it's, to me, it's not just the housing, it's what kind of town we want to see and live in, and who are we providing the housing for, and how fair is that? Because in the time I've lived here, the whole division in this town between, and the things I see coming through planning board, these incredibly huge houses, massive houses that could shelter, 5 families. Some of them are so crazy. I mean, everybody has their own bathrooms and the dog washing room, and I mean, really. And the town I want to see, and maybe it's shared with others, is a fairer town where we say we have housing, we want housing, but is it affordable housing? And how do you mold that instead of just housing types? Because to me, you can have a housing type for, multifamily, and they could be, dressed in marble, and not be affordable. So how you put that into any comprehensive plan, because this is talking about zoning, and to say that you want to distribute it around town, I'm all for that, because that gets to the heart of this matter of how do you change the zoning to encourage different types of housing around the town, instead of emphasizing it has to be on a bus route. Well, maybe you change the bus route so that it can help the people in other areas of the town. So that's my democratic socialist rant. Anyway, proceed.
Thank you, Linda. Kathleen.
So I agree. I think that every area can have something. And so we should be aiming to provide housing in each of the areas. I mean, ADU units, there are a lot of these very lower density areas. Makes perfect sense to provide that kind of variation in housing size and cost. I thought that the pictures in each of the areas was very helpful, especially for the areas I was less familiar with. But I also found it easier once I started with one where I was kind of grasping for the areas. As I moved through each exercise, it got easier, but I'm wondering if question 3 would be better done graphically with a map. So that, you had a big map of Brookline, and it's very clearly labeled what all of the landmarks are. So Brookline Village, Coolidge Corner, Washington Square, all of the schools, the T stops, and major routes. So I felt like some of that was on here, but you could almost take a sticker for A through H and just put it on the plan and just say, this is where I think each of these housing types would belong. And then if I agree, if there's an area you're not familiar with, there should be an option to opt out and just not comment on it. I felt like I was a little bit making quick decisions on each of the areas, and looking at David's answer and mine for question 2, I bet if we had a conversation, I'd change some of my answers. I'm not confident that this is where I would land. It was just kind of gut reaction for me. I do feel that talking through this exercise is like the most important thing this committee can do. Where are we putting the housing? That is the number one question that, we are facing as a town. And I do feel that if we were to somehow simplify this and even make this the focus of the engagement, I think we'd get a lot out of that. You know, where do people want to see the housing? And I do find that this matrix here is a little bit burdensome, and I just think graphically it'd be a lot easier to stick, you know, A through H on that. Maybe I'm just a more graphic person. I just feel like question 3 got at it all. Needs more landmarks, and maybe there's an option to expand on your neighborhood personally, where you say, this is where I live, and this is exactly what I think we need right here. I know about Chestnut Hill West, but I'm not really sure where it is on the map. So I have ideas about that, but I'm not sure it's captured correctly in what I put on here.
That's helpful.
You know, and I know roughly where it is, but I'm not exactly sure what area. I'm not
Right,
sure
right.
it's in Fort Vine.
Yep.
So that's a big difference.
Yep.
And I bet the average person doesn't even know about it. That was,
I'm here not much
Nope, nope.
on this map.
right. And so, so those were my, but I liked it overall. I thought I was really getting to a lot of really important issues.
Betsy, the response.
There's an issue that everyone's bringing up, issues that weren't brought up in this, and one of them, you know, all know I'm kind of an older adult senior advocate in town, and we haven't at all addressed the need for housing that people can age into. And so often we talk about, like, well, we may need more schools if a particular area gets more dense, but we have a lot of people, huge population in town, it's growing nationwide and actually internationally, who are aging. And so we need housing that people can maybe downsize into, which, and that we haven't addressed that at all.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we can get to everybody. So one quick question, comment, and then we'll switch to online folks.
Quick question, quick comment. The question is, however this comes out, will this be replicated in the survey?
Yes.
Okay, and the comment is two comments. I'm sorry, indulge me. I think specifically identifying Chestnut Hill West on the map is an obvious thing that we need to do. You know, because it's a focus, and whatever people want to say about it, they shouldn't be in doubt whether it's in 3 or 4.
Yeah.
The other thing was, I just as we were starting to fill it out, I asked if the expectation was that we fill out 2 and 3, irrespective of how we filled out question 1. And you know, I mean, there are going to be different views about, you know, when people do this, there are different views here, whether, you know, there should be a bullet filled out for each area or not. And, you know, in my case, I didn't put me in 5, because I put 2 in area 2, but that doesn't mean I don't think there should be any new housing in area 5. And to the degree, I mean, it's a subtle thing, to the degree that could be made clear to folks, that, you know, when you get to question 2 and 3, you know, you talk about any area you want, because when, you know, presumably no one's saying they literally don't think there should be any housing in an area that they left out because they only have 5 dot streets.
Yep. Great point. Understood. All right. Why don't we go to online folks?
Carol and Linda.
Yeah.
Carolyn, you hear this?
I'm going last, so I'm waiting for Carol.
I have no comments from this. I'm having a very hard time following the whole thing, so I'm gonna go back and look at it more. And I'm listening.
And I've missed all, I know I've missed all the conversation, but I do have some questions about the way data is presented or the way questions are asked. So for instance, area 5. I know that there's been as many units created in area 5 as probably in the rest of the town. But I don't think anybody looking at that would know that there has been a lot of units added to our SHI, in our housing inventory, from area 5. That somehow it gets ignored because most people never go to area 5. They live really in other parts of town. And you know, as you pointed out, I mean, you're not as familiar with it. I would say that's true of almost everybody in the town. And I think it would be an opportunity also to educate people so that they know that it's not that this part of town is not creating housing. because that's a false assumption. Because most of the attention gets placed in the center of town or in North Brookline. So that's one thing. I think some context is important. You know, that we're not, these areas are not blank slates. And in a way, by just getting something like this, if you're not from that area, you might have that impression that not much is happening there. So that's one comment. I did make comments. I don't know if they were circulated I sent them to Jake. But the other comment I have is that I really think that we should have people only comment about the area in which they are most familiar. I really don't want people who live in Coolidge Corner telling me what I should have in my backyard. Nor do I want to tell anybody in North Brookline what I think they should have. That I think that the people who live in the area have insights that I don't have. And I value that lived experience and what that can contribute to to our data collection stuff.
Okay.
Making it.
Really late.
Yeah.
We should-
Yeah.
we should go.
Okay, just ended.
Okay, I'm gonna try to be quick, folks. So, I get it, it is late. I think my first number one comment on all of the three questions is I am very concerned about the language, about, we need it. It will realize our vision. I think we have to talk, I think, like, I would change question 3 to be what types of housing might be appropriate in these areas. Okay, so I think all of that needs to be thought about throughout. I agree that commercial needs to be included, and this can't all just be about housing. The original point of doing the areas and talking about building sizes was so that the people in town could get some idea of the scale and the magnitude of change. Like, if you just toss out 1,600 units, what does that really look like on the ground? How many demolitions are we going to have? How many new buildings? Just getting some sense of that. And I think we've completely lost that by turning it into this. And I agree with Linda Hamlin and Susan that I don't think having people just randomly pick sizes of buildings is really giving us valuable information. I agree with Susan that what's really important is what people's general preferences are in the areas that they're familiar with. So I think we need to seriously consider going back to that. And if we're not gonna express the downsides to any of this, or the consequences or the impacts, I think it's consequent free. And I just think that's really problematic. So I had started out asking, could we talk about pros and cons for the different scenarios? This will help with that, it'll hurt this. And we're still really not doing that. And I know I heard someone say something about trying to convey too much. And I think that is a problem, but I'm very worried that having this question 3 and having people just check boxes everywhere is not going to be useful information. And it's not going to tell us what type of housing. And to the point about the discussion that we had about the design of the buildings, I mean, that really matters to people. And they would be much more willing to accept new development if they knew at least something about what it might look like. And so, skipping that and talking about this area that I don't live in needs, 5 to 8 story buildings is really kind of preposterous. So I want to go back to trimming it back and trying to get preferences. And I agreed with the comment about the map that who made that? But that it would be much easier if they could locate a dot on a map than trying to envision these different areas. So I'm having a hard time. And I think that we tried to address the scale issue by putting the little numbers, the number of sites and the size of the building, but I don't think anybody who filled this out paid any attention to that. So we've missed the original purpose of that exercise now. So that's my feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
We're done?
I'm so there. Or quickly,
Yeah, steps
Or you can write them on
your sheet and then hand it to Jill and Co. and they'll make note of them.
Well, can you just talk briefly about next steps? I'm a little bit concerned that, we are in mid-January and we're already, I think, kind of behind schedule and we still seem to not be in agreement. We had one idea, now there's a different idea, but there's still our disagreement. So like, how do we resolve this in a timely fashion? Where do we?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing overall is that there are parts of this exercise that feel very valuable to a lot of people in the room. And there's, I think, clear consensus that the areas are confusing as it is hard to locate yourself on the map. I think there's some things like that it feels like there's good consensus that we can pretty easily figure out a path forward to resolve. I think the pieces that are probably a little bit harder to figure out the right balance is, I mean, giving people the choice to skip an area they're not familiar with. That one we can do pretty easily. I think how we find that right balance of, is it a map? Is it the paper like this? I mean, I do think people think about things in different ways. And so it felt like some people found it really easy to do this that might have had trouble with the map. But what I was hearing you say, Kathleen, is I really need the map to think through it, which is totally valid too. So it's something our team will need to think more about is how do we ask these questions in a format that works for a variety of different styles of sharing feedback. How we add in commercial without this getting more overwhelming. I think the easy way would be to add a few more columns, but I can guess that as we add more columns, that might start to feel overwhelming. So we'll need to think through that a bit more too. It sounds like there was agreement we should figure out how. So leave that to us to think through how it fits in.
But sorry, we do have the other exercise still, right?
We still have the other
townwide,
exercise.
where we will be asking about commercial and preference for commercial.
Well, I had another comment, sorry, on the townwide. You said that we were going to have a ranked priority of 10 strategies. Is that, it wasn't clearly described, but let me just say that I think we need to ask people to pick a priority strategy in each of the areas and make them think about all the different areas that we're trying to keep in mind as we plan. Like instead of having 12, the way it was before, it was 12 strategies for 5 different topic areas. And that's when I complained about the order, because if you don't read the whole list, you're not considering anything else but what you first read, etc. So I think that should be a prioritize of 1 and 2 items for each of the areas that we're asking about. Because then people are forced to give an opinion when it comes to mobility and historic preservation and parks and open space. Do they really mean that they don't care about those things? And I think that's what we need to ask people.
But do you mean each geographic area or do you mean each topic?
Each topic.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Like, don't let people put all of their strategies in one topic.
Yeah.
Make them answer my number 1 and my number 2 for each topic.
Yeah.
And you
Thanks.
also on top of that, say which topics are most important to you. So you kind of references there.
Linda, we haven't brought it up, and that's what I thought about is that, town meeting, we passed the MBTA Act along Harvard Day. And what was the number that was projected in that? Do you recall what that number was?
I think it was like 700 or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say 800, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like out
It's a
there.
lot. And we already rezoned for it.
Yeah, but we haven't really, the building hasn't happened because of zoning restrictions and.
Because it's not profitable. I mean, the zoning
Well,
is there, but it's not
Right.
profitable to build basically.
Right.
The zoning.
Well, it's the cost of labor, the cost of land, the cost of supplies, the business uncertainty. I mean, the banks aren't giving, I mean, nobody's building anything right
Yeah,
now.
I mean, there's also the depth of the lot, and you know, what makes sense
So
to
I'm gonna-
build in those
Yeah.
things. And also a lot of those are, you know, long-term owners. They get
Mhm.
their money from the leases. They don't really have any ambitions beyond that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sometimes we found
That's all
that
our
their
forecast.
children have more
740
ambitions,
units.
so we get a little
700
action.
units Right there that we already passed the town meeting.
Yeah, but you can't lay the whole blame on the zoning. That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah, no,
So
no.
just to quickly, we're about to lose some folks here in the room.
Yeah.
We're trying to head out the door.
When is the?
Do you want these? Yes, please. I would love everyone
Are
to
you
hand out to the
welcome
rooms here. I propose that agency put together a summary list of next steps and what we heard and a path forward, and we'll share that with Jake and Kara.
Yep.
And then
Sitting down the
we'll
work
go
on the
from
street,
there.
No, I
It's, uh,
think we're gonna do it.
Thank you everybody for your feedback.
Oh, and make sure you
Thanks,
take
everybody.
stuff home. I brought in muffins and turnovers.